everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our April webinar. My name is Megan Levita, and I'm a program manager here at Kirkwood Corporate Training. Joining us today is Courtney Misener to present on empathetic leadership. Courtney is a writer, professional speaker, and an emotional health advocate. She served as the Director of Programs and Engagement at House of Hope in Cedar Rapids for 4.5 years before leaving to teach boundaries and emotional wellness at a corporate level. Courtney was named Eastern Iowa's Professional Women's Network 2020 Woman of the Year as well. So we're so honored to have you with us today, Courtney. And in the interest of time, I'm going to pass it right over to you.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. I was just chatting with Megan. Here's the thing. We are doing this webinar on my iPad today. So I am talking to you, teaching, and I cannot see anyone. So I am trusting that you're going to be with me. I'm trusting that this information is going to land, but I hope that you will be able to take something away that you can put in play today that is tangible, that you can walk away from this webinar and that you have something that you can put in your everyday life. So we're going to talk about empathetic leadership. We're going to talk about empathy. I'm going to share some of my favorite tips and tricks, I guess, for leaning in more on empathy and being a stronger, more dialed in leader. And as I slide through here, we're going to talk a little bit about what many of you are probably feeling, possibly have felt. I know that I am feeling it, and it's that word burnout. So a little bit of background. Yes, hello, my name is Courtney. I am local to Cedar Rapids. I am married to a musician. He's actually a worship pastor in the Coralville area. I thought he was going to be famous, but he ended up not. Obviously, that's why I'm hanging out with you today. But I was down to be a trophy wife and a roadie and to travel the world with him while he wrote music. But life had different plans. And we are here in Cedar Rapids. We have 3 boys. We have a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So I am in it when it comes to teenagers and hormones. I know I hear all the time from people, that raising a teen daughter is difficult, but I would just like to say that as a mother of 3 boys, there are some challenges there too. So we are in the teen years. I have a full-time career. My husband has a full-time career. And then we are also active on social media. We have a family social media page that actually started in 2020. We were one of those dancing families that came out of COVID. And so we have this robust community on Instagram and TikTok. And so I did not mean to add content creator to my professional resume, but I am also a full-time content creator. So we have a lot going on, and there are many days in my life where I just sit down at the end of the day and I feel so depleted. I feel so fatigued, and it's a different type of fatigue. It's not just a physical fatigue. It's a full body fatigue, a full body lack of motivation, just a numbness, if you will. And I have recently discovered that in the past several months, I think that I am experiencing signs of burnout, and maybe you are too. So we're going to read here. It says, recent data suggests that a large portion of workers report feeling burned out, emotionally drained, and used up. I like that word there, used up. A survey found that 44% of U.S. employees feel overwhelmed or burned out at work. And then this is going to come as no surprise, with women reporting higher levels of burnout than men. So here are some signs of burnout: physical exhaustion, a decline in motivation, a decline in performance. This is at work. A negative outlook towards work and relationships, loss of appetite, physical pain. So if you're starting to actually feel it in your body, that comes in the form of headaches, being really stiff, being sore, upset stomach, anxiety in the stomach. So physical pain, substance use or an uptick in substance use, procrastination, irritability, and difficulty concentrating, and a lack of satisfaction in things that otherwise used to bring you joy. Now, I don't know about you, and if I could see all your faces, I don't know if some of you are nodding, but there are a handful of things there in that paragraph that I specifically can relate with. Additionally, within my career, I listen to a lot of podcasts on emotional intelligence, on behavioral psychology, and on a recent podcast I was listening to, the gentleman, the expert, mentioned something that made me smile, but also I was like, you know what? I really do believe that's true. He said that the majority of us wake up every morning from slightly to moderately irritated. So the majority of us wake up every morning slightly or moderately irritated. And it takes only a little thing to send us over to being extremely irritated and or just full-blown angry. And the people who don't wake up slightly irritated are those who have practiced morning routines to set themselves, on the path for success every day. But the majority of us wake up and we are just irritated to get the day start. We have to get up, we got to go to work, we got to get kids to work, we got to feed people. We're already checking our emails, we hop on social media. So we are just like right out of the gate, already overwhelmed, already slightly irritated. And then we go out into the world and then we go to work. And so here we are out in the world. Here we are interacting with people, interacting with the people who live in our home, interacting with the people who work with us, interacting with whoever's driving really slow in the morning that's irritating you, interacting with people at the store. And we go out into the world and our behavior starts to mimic the different triggers, the different things within our environment that have changed the way that we feel. And sometimes those triggers, sometimes those behaviors can come off a little off-putting to people, can come off as irritable, can come off as someone that's difficult to work with, can come off as hard to approach. You understand what I'm saying. And so today I want to guide us into moving towards taking a more empathetic approach to the way that we show up in our everyday life. Empathetic leadership, not only at work, but also at home, and just like an overall empathetic way of where we show up in every part of our everyday. So some of the things that you're going to learn today, we can definitely use at work, but also they will help at home, and they will help when you go out to eat or when you're out shopping. So these things you'll be able to apply in everyday life. But for the sake of this webinar, we're going to pull back here to empathetic leadership. So when we're thinking about the definition of what empathetic leadership is, what it is just connecting with others and understanding their point of view. Now, there's two really important things there. We have two action steps in that definition. First, we connect with others. And second, we understand their point of view. This is going to require us to tap into emotional intelligence and self-awareness. And I am going to talk about all of those things in the next slide. But one important takeaway that I want you to see here is that we have two action steps, connecting with others and understanding their point of view, that are requiring us to be out of our general funk, out of ourselves in the moment, and checked in with the person in front of us. And so if we are thinking about what I was talking about before, some of us feeling burnt out, some of us coming into these spaces irritated, we're going to have to start learning how to make this shift into self-awareness, because for us to be effective, empathetic people, empathetic leaders, and empathetic members of society, it requires us to pull out of our emotional wake, pull out of our emotional moment, and be able to connect to the person sitting across from us. So in order to do that, there's a really important skill here, and it's within and under the umbrella of emotional intelligence. So I get hired to teach on empathy. I get hired to teach on EQ, emotional intelligence, and I get hired to teach and speak on boundaries. And we are going to cover all three of those actually today in this webinar. So in order for us to lean into empathetic leadership and to become empathetic individuals and empathetic coworkers and bosses, we have to exercise emotional intelligence. Now, there's 4 different quadrants to EQ, but today we're just going to talk about the 2 that are here on the screen. I'm going to read the definition here, and it says emotional intelligence is an enabling leaders. This is as an emotional intelligent leader, enabling leaders to understand and manage their emotions and the emotions of others, leading to better relationships, collaboration, and overall team performance. Also, just high EQ as an individual means that you understand and manage your own emotions. So that top quadrant there where it says self-awareness is a imperative skill when it comes to emotional intelligence. And what self-awareness does, self-awareness says that I understand how I'm feeling. I understand how I'm feeling in this moment. I understand how I'm feeling, and I understand how to handle this feeling. So I'm not going to push this feeling down. I'm not going to ignore it. I am going to notice it. I'm going to validate it. And then I'm going to move forward in the healthy behavior about what to do with this feeling. Now, I know that sounded like, oh, that sounds really nice. In reality, it is a lot difficult to do. All of us usually do not take 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds to say, oh, wait a second, I'm feeling irritated. I'm feeling triggered. I'm feeling really angry. I'm feeling really amped up right now. Most of us just lean into the feeling and then the behavior follows. And sometimes that behavior is not productive. Sometimes that behavior is harmful in the moment. When we are practicing emotional intelligence as a leader and an emotional intelligence as a person, we recognize what we've got going on. We recognize that maybe we're walking into the space and we're already in a mood, and we need to hold ourselves accountable for the mood that we're bringing into the space. We recognize that there is something that has triggered us. And listen, the world is triggering. People are triggering. I think I told you, I got 3 kids and I got a husband. Triggers all day, every day. They're out here triggering me. It is my responsibility, though. It is my responsibility in the moment to decide what I'm going to do with the behavior that follows to their trigger. So emotional intelligence requires self-awareness in the moment. And then the second one is self-regulation. That is that action of how can I regulate the behavior that's going to follow? So let's say we get really angry at work, which we do. Let's say we get irritated at work, which we do. Let's say that we are feeling just melancholy. We're not motivated. We're not bought into the mission. We don't like the project. All of that happens. When we start to feel those things, it is our responsibility to take just a few minutes if we've got them. Now you could journal. I don't know if you just jot it down on a piece of paper, send yourself a voice note or a note, go to the bathroom, go to the car, take a second and recognize what emotion is boiling up. And then in what ways can you show up with a productive behavior to follow? So if you're extremely angry about something, that's okay. You're going to be angry. Take you 2, 3, 4 seconds. Recognize that you're getting angry. Notice the physical changes in your body. Take a lap, take a walk, go get a coffee, and come back with your brain a little bit more calmed down. Because I promise you that if you're trying to enter into a crucial conversation with someone, if you're trying to have a relationship with someone, if you are working on a project with someone, when that anger is building, it is going to block creativity. It's going to block collaboration. It's going to block open dialogue. It's going to block empathy. And so we need to be able to self-regulate and realize when we're getting activated. Now, you may be saying, Courtney, I don't want to just shove it down and walk away. And that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to take a few seconds to recognize the emotion that you're having, validate it, and then start to put in place the steps that for the conversations that you need to have with someone. Now, those conversations might be scary, and those conversations might be daunting to think about. But in order to have them and to do them well, that's where we start to lean into empathy. So empathy is a huge part of EQ. Empathy is one of the major players when it comes to emotional intelligence. So if we are being self-aware and being responsible for ourselves in a moment, when we are recognizing the energy that we're bringing into an exchange, and then we're sitting down with someone that we do not maybe agree with, someone that we are not compatible with, someone that we've had disagreements with in the end, someone whose personality just doesn't jive with us, this is where we have the opportunity to lean in with empathy as a coworker and a leader. I want to, if I have any parents on the webinar, I was just going to add a little something here that's interesting to me about personality differences and the use of empathy. Now, I went to school for behavioral psych. I have always been fascinated by human behavior. And in one of my classes, actually, it was a class about childhood behavior and adolescence and nature versus nurture and all that good stuff. But anyways, in that class, they were talking about personality compatibility. And I thought this was wild because when it comes to children, some of us may smile and say, you know, I don't really have a favorite. I don't have a favorite because I love them all equally. And that is true. As a parent, we love them all equally. But the thing you may not say out loud, but you know, is that you might have a favorite. And you might have a favorite just because your personality and that child's personality are more compatible than the personality of the child that you know, just want to every day. And I got one, and usually it's the person that's just like you, but it's not about a lack of love for the child. It's more about the compatibility of personalities. And so that shows up at work too. That shows up in friend groups. That shows up in social circles. That shows up in places of faith. It shows up in every group that you are a part of. Sometimes our personalities just do not jive with other people's personalities. And that doesn't necessarily make that person wrong, or below you, not smart, not qualified. It's just a compatibility issue. So what do we do with that? The thing is that we're going to work with people and we're going to lead people that we may not be compatible with. So this is such an important moment to be able to lean in with empathy. Now, there are 3 different types of empathy I want you to think about. The first one is cognitive empathy. What cognitive empathy means is that you critically understand, you logically understand what someone is going through. The second is emotional empathy, and that means you feel it. Not only do you understand and you can see their point of view, but you also feel it. And the last form of empathy is compassionate. And compassionate empathy is empathy that moves us to action. We see a lot of examples of compassionate empathy when there is a crisis, or like 9/11, or when here in Iowa, when we had the derecho, I think I said that correctly, the inland hurricane, people were moved to action to help. And so they saw it, they understood, they felt it, and then they were moved to action. So we have 3 different forms of empathy. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. This is how I usually teach empathy, at the risk of many of you no longer liking me on the webinar, and that's okay. But I'm going to tell you a story about dogs. So, as it turns out, not a dog person. I was raised with them, raised with so many dogs. I'm from the South. My parents had dogs all my childhood, and they just never were my thing. Just not a dog person. My children have always really wanted a dog. We did try for a little bit, but we got the wrong breed. And I can't wait for them to move out and enjoy their entire life as pet owners one day. But as it stands, my husband and I, not dog people. Now, I used to work at a nonprofit. I was the program director for a nonprofit in town that helped women transition in times of crisis. And my coworkers, every single one of them, every single coworker I had, huge dog people, huge pet people, just big time. They dressed up their dogs for Halloween. They took pictures, family photos with their dogs. They talked about their dogs all the time. And of course, they showed me pictures of their dogs. And I loved them. I loved all of my coworkers. And so it was worth me showing interest in the things that they also had interest in, the things that they loved. They looked at pictures of my kids. I enjoyed looking at pictures of their pets. One week, two of the dogs got really sick. My two different coworkers had two dogs, separate dogs. Each family had a pet that got sick. One of the pets passed away. And that was my direct report. She called me, she called in, she was extremely distraught. I knew that this dog had been sick and she needed to use some vacation time because she was out of her other available time to be able to properly grieve the passing of her pet. Now, this was an opportunity for me to employ all three forms of empathy as her leader and as her direct report. So the first thing was just cognitive empathy. Now, I, not being a dog person, could have very well just been a jerk. I could have said, you know, that's not what we, I need you in the office. You're already out of the allotted time that you can use for PTO. This isn't, you're not sick. And so I need you just to come in. I'm sorry, you know, but that's just not going to work. So I could have done that. But instead, knowing how deeply this impacted her, even though I have never experienced the loss of a pet, even though I do not know, I couldn't even say, I understand how you feel, because I didn't understand how she felt. But what I could say is, I do understand why you're sad. I do understand why this is heavy for you. Given all the information that I know about you, given all that you have shared about your life, yes, this makes sense. And because I want to honor that, of course, you can have this time off to grieve the loss of your pet. For those of you who are pet people and dog people, you would connect emotionally to this too. You would deeply feel what my coworker was going through. You would feel that on a different level. And then the compassionate empathy, I did lean into compassionate empathy in this. And as a team, you know, we sent flowers and a card and made sure that she knew that we understood how heavy this grief was. So I know that that's somewhat a little bit of an elementary example of being able to use empathy at work. But the truth is that you could do this as a leader in almost every hard conversation that you have to have with someone, or every conversation that maybe you didn't want to have with someone. When they are talking to you about something that's really important and you are listening and you are self-aware with the energy in your body behavior, and you are leaned in to wanting to better understand what this coworker or this person has going on, you can employ cognitive empathy, even if you don't agree. Even if you don't agree, that's so important. Knowing what you know about the situation and the person, you can say, thank you so much for telling me, I understand. And then the emotional empathy, that's going to come natural. And then if you're moved to compassion. But I really I want you to understand the importance of cognitive empathy, because a lot of times we have to use that when we don't have that personality compatibility, when we don't have that ease in a relationship. We need to lean in to cognitive empathy and say, yeah, I get it. And I understand. And thank you so much for telling me. When we lean in with empathy in leadership and in conversations, we create something that's really important, which is safety. It's safety in a relationship. And then people trust us. They trust us as their leaders. And so using empathy in the work, at work, using empathy with your employees, using empathy with your team members will create a space where it doesn't feel like there's so much friction all the time. It doesn't feel like there's tension. There's this unspoken thing. Instead, you're going to create, frankly, a lot more delightful exchange, which makes for a better workday. And use this at home too. Use empathy with your kiddos. Use empathy with your spouse, because again, that's going to pull that tension out of the moment, out of the exchange, create safety, and then we can have a more productive conversation. The next thing when it comes to being an empathetic leader, I think, there it goes. Ooh, not boundaries yet. Hold on. Okay, it's active listening. Whew. I don't know. I'm not that great at active listening. Now I'm listening, but active listening, I don't know. Active listening is a whole skill that I am still working on. And if any of you married, whew, I know my husband's still working on it too. That's the stuff that we talk about in therapy. Like I know that I am saying words into the air, but I don't know if anyone around me is actually listening to me or they understand what I'm saying. So when we are being an empathetic leader, an empathetic person in our relationships, what that means is that we are actually listening to the person that is talking to us. So I want to start with this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes from George Bernard Shaw. He wrote Crucial Conversations, and he says, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. We think that people are mind readers. We think that there's just this unspoken understanding sometimes, when the truth is no, we were not clear. Brene Brown actually says being clear is kind. Clear is kind. We need to be clear with our words. We need to be clear with our intentions. We need to be clear with what we expect from people. We need to be clear, and you can be clear in a really kind way. You can be clear in a respectful way. But being clear in our communication is so important, especially as an empathetic leader. So when we are in an exchange with someone and they are talking to us, it is important for us to make sure that we are listening, and we are listening from a place of curiosity. Curiosity is going to require us to actually be interested in what the person is saying, not just trying to get them out of our office, not just trying to get through this meeting, not just trying to get through this 5-second exchange as I'm walking to, to the water cooler or just walking out, that we actually turn around and we are curious about what the person's going to say. You may have heard this before, but active listening also requires us to listen first to understand, not to respond. So many of us have been before in an exchange where someone interrupts us or someone stops us talking or tries to move us through our thought a little bit quicker, and it feels really deflating in the moment. And sometimes the person who's interrupting is not doing it from a place of malice or ill intent. It's just they're excited to say what they have to say next, or something jumped in their mind per what we were talking about, and they inserted it. When you are an active listener and an empathetic listener, you lean in, you listen close, and you try not to interrupt. By the way, for those of you on here who interrupt, it's just a habit. So I don't want you to feel shame about it, but it is something that you can catch because you're self-aware, and you can start to change. So we listen with curiosity. We actually listen to what the person is saying. Second, for a win when it comes to active listening, is that we eliminate distractions. Oh my goodness, we are so distracted. We are so distracted as a society. And you know that. Matter of fact, many of you maybe are watching me or listening to me, and you are also still working. And so you could be doing 2 or 3 activities right now. And I am here with some maybe bad news for, especially for women. Multitasking is actually a myth. Sometimes we want to throw that on our resume, or we say that we are just, you know, the best at multitasking. But the truth is that when you are multitasking, you are asking your brain to do many things at once. And because of that, it takes away from the effort to do just one thing well. There has been so many studies that talk about multitasking actually drags out projects. It actually takes longer to get through things because you're having to switch between tasks, which is really difficult for our brain. Our brain just wants to focus on one. And the same goes when we are listening to people, or when we are listening to maybe a podcast. We're distracted. We're on our phones. We're scrolling. There's stuff going on in our environment. Our minds are wandering and we're distracted. And so if this is an important conversation, if you need to have an important conversation with someone at work, if you need to have an important conversation with someone in your life, and we need to lean in with empathy and listen well, we have to eliminate distractions. The other thing I always say, again, having been married for as long as I've been married, don't have the hard conversation with your spouse at night when everybody's tired, or maybe after a bottle of wine. Those are the things that are going to just create an environment that's not ready for active listening, for compassionate listening, and for empathy in a conversation. The next thing, in order to be great at listening, is observe body language. You can tell what's going on with the person across from you when you're talking. And when you are having a difficult conversation, it's okay. Or if you're just having a conversation and someone starts to shift or look down or looks distracted or is bored, it's okay to stop the line of thought and what the topic, and just say, you know what, I just want to pause here. I'm noticing, name the behavior, and I just want to make sure you're okay. I want to make sure you're still comfortable talking about this. And if you're not, we can come back to this topic when you feel like you're ready to talk about it. So make sure that you observe body language while also holding yourself accountable, being self-aware to what body language you have in the exchange. Are you closed off? Are you big? Intimidating, the fluctuation of your voice, all of those things are within your realm of control. And it's important for you to observe not only how you're showing up, but also how the person that you're talking to is receiving your message and what their body is telling you to. And the last thing about active listening is paraphrasing. And so you're in this exchange with someone and you are leaning in with curiosity. You're observing the body language, you're having a good conversation. And so when the person is done talking to you about what it is that they are concerned about and or that they are talking about, paraphrase back to them what you heard. Ask for clarification to make sure that you understood their message clearly. That way you can move forward if you're problem solving together, or you can move forward if you are creating something together and everyone is on the same page. So paraphrase and say, thank you so much for telling me that. This is what I heard. You can use language like that. This is what I heard. Or I want to make sure I understood you correctly, and then say what you heard, and just allow the person on the other end of the exchange to agree with it or to give any more clarifying information as needed. And so when we are thinking about being an empathetic leader, what that means is that we are creating connection. Back to the first definition, creating connection. And we create connection through active listening. We create connection through creating safety. We create connection through being curious. We create connection through being empathetic and seeking to understand. We create connection with people by leaning in and actually show a general interest in what they are saying or what they are bringing to the table, or honestly, what they have going on in their lives. Now we're getting to the point where you're just like, you know what? Okay, Courtney, fine. But listen, I don't have time for that. And like, I want you to know, like, I get it. I get it. I understand that you may not have time for that, especially if I am talking to anyone on the webinar, and we're going to move all the way back to the beginning of this, especially if I'm talking to anyone on here who's burnt out. You're burnt out from being let's see here, you are over functioning at work, you are overwhelmed at work, there is too much going on, you do not have enough support, these personality compatibility issues are feeling heavy, you're feeling burdened by, things that are outside of your control, you're feeling burdened possibly by just life in general. And then what I'm asking you to do is notice all of that, put it to the side, walk in, lean in, be curious about someone. I understand. I just want you to know that I understand. That's why I always start with burnout, because in order for us to become empathetic leaders, we have to be empathetic here, and we have to be healthy. In order for us to be able to pull outward of ourselves and lean in and get to know someone else at a different level, means that we're going to have to be able to walk into these spaces healthy. And in order to do that, we have to start setting boundaries in our life. Now, when I teach boundaries, I have an entire course on boundaries, and you are going to get a little crash course here with the hula hoop. This is what we call the hula hoop. This is how my therapist taught me boundaries, and I am going to teach you boundaries. Okay, first of all, one of my favorite boundaries quotes, it says, limits on good things, keep them good. Limits on good things, keep them good. And you can honestly think about almost anything that we need or that you love in your life. And if you do too much of it, it starts to feel in a way that can make you sick. I'm going to give you a couple examples. The sunshine. I'm from the South. You may have heard that a couple of times in my accent. I need the sun. Here I am living in Iowa. Sometimes it's way too gray for me. I need the sun. The sun energizes me. The sun puts me in a great mood. I have to have the sun. What is also true is that if I have too much sun, I can get sun poisoning. I can get burned. I can feel awful. Even the sun has to have a limit. Wine. I like a glass of wine. It is pretty obvious. I cannot drink bottles and bottles of wine every night. I mean, I can, but that is not going to be a healthy behavior that is going to allow me to keep showing up every day empathetically, or even at my best for my family and at work. Social media. Oh, social media. Listen to me. I as a content creator, I have to hop on social media. It's part of a business. However, I know that you know what it feels when you have been scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and doom scrolling, and you are just taking in all of this crummy information. I know you know the physical feeling of just being like, blah, blah. Why am I in such a mood? Why am I mad at somebody's cousin, my father-in-law's cousin, because he posted this meme? Why am I mad at this stranger? Right? And it impacts our mood, and we're in a mood, and then we take that out into the world. So boundaries on social media, boundaries on all media, boundaries on all media. Another example is family. Man, we love hanging out. Boundaries on people. We love hanging out. We love being with people, but sometimes limits on the time that you spend with people is important. That's what keeps the relationship good. So limits on good things, keep them good. The other part of boundaries I want you to catch is this realm of control. Now, this is a really easy concept. Some of us may have learned it when we were in elementary school, but what is true is that there are things every single day that we can control, and every single day there is so much more that is outside of our hula hoop, our realm of control. If you look at that circle there, you can see the things that I can control. I'm going to start there. My words, who I surround myself with, my behavior, taking care of myself, my ideas, who I share my ideas with, whether or not I'm going to be honest, whether or not I'm going to ask for help, things that I read and watch, the way that I treat others, whether or not I apologize, especially if I need to apologize, how I decide to help others, how I respond to the consequences of my actions, whether or not I'm going to try again, my effort. I know that you are catching the theme here. This is how my therapist taught me. This is the hula hoop. From here to here is me. And in that circle is what I can control. Me. This is what I can control every day. What I cannot control, who likes me. I know that's like, I want everyone to like me. I hope you like me on the webinar, but let me tell you something. If you don't, it's okay. I got to keep rolling. I got to go pick my kids up. I got to figure out what to have for dinner. I can't be sitting around like, I really wonder if those people in the webinar liked me today. Who likes me? Someone else's beliefs. This is so important, especially now, especially in the political environment that we're in. It is so important. People do not believe what we believe. They do not. And people are allowed to believe what they believe. The way that we believe comes from so many things. Okay, our belief systems are built up over our lifetime. And they are built up over experiences. They are built up because of relationships. They're built up because of the home that we were raised in. They're built up because of the information that we consume. They're built up from the friends that we have. I mean, there are so many reasons people come to a belief system. Now, if we're thinking about being an empathetic leader, if we're thinking about creating connection, we have to understand that some people just do not believe the way that we believe. And we have to let that go. We have to say, okay, I understand, knowing the information I know about you. I understand that's why you believe that way. I still have to work with you today, so we're going to have to move past that, right? Someone's beliefs outside of our control. The weather, we live in Iowa, come on. Others' mistakes, can't control them. When we pass away, can't control them. How someone's going to respond, can't control them. How other people use social media, I wish somebody would use it healthier, can't control it. You guys, others apologizing, someone else's decisions. We're understanding the theme here, okay? How others treat us. This is really important. You cannot control how other people respond to you. You cannot control how other people treat you, but you do get to decide who and when and where you spend your time. You do get to decide if you're going to lean in compassionately and empathetically. You do get to decide if you're going to set boundaries in relationships. Past mistakes, whether or not people are kind, we understand. We understand that there is an entire world that we cannot control. Some of the reason that we are feeling this burnout, some of the reason that so many of us are feeling this melancholy, this apathy, this lack of motivation, this blah, is because we have got ourselves into so many areas that are no longer within our control. We are consuming way too much media. We are not connecting authentically anymore in one-on-one conversations. We're not sitting down and having coffee the way that we're used to. We're not going over to ask our neighbor for a cup of sugar the way that we used to. We're not going outside as much, connecting with nature and unplugging, and we're all feeling it. And so I am asking you today, if you want to be able to be a true empathetic leader, and a true empathetic leader means that you are completely locked in to the person in front of you. You're completely listening to the person in front of you, that you're completely allowing the person in front of you to be who they are in the moment, in the conversation. In order to do that, you have to be healthy. You have to be well. You have to have the capacity to be able to engage in those exchanges. And so boundaries will help you. Boundaries will help you start to understand what you can control in any given day, what you can lay down, and allow you to be more available for the people in your life and the relationships and the connections that you need to be making. I hope that made sense. Okay, we're at the last slide, I do believe. Yes. Oh, we made it. but as we can see, that font did not make it the way that it should. But I end here with this picture of my boys, because my boys are the ones that currently in my life I am having to, and my husband, I am having to lean in with the most empathy. They are going through things that, even though I may not feel it and understand, I can cognitively understand. They need me to be active listeners in their life. They need me to be undistracted listener in their life. The words that they are saying to me, though sometimes I just don't really want to hear about it, are still important. And the reason why they're important is because these relationships are important. They are extremely important relationships that I want to make sure that I set a firm foundation for the boys to know that this is a safe place, and that mom is going to be able to listen, and mom's going to be able to connect. And I hope that you will be able to recognize if you're experiencing burnout, reach out to the help and the resources that you need, especially if you're experiencing extreme burnout and it's moving into depression, deep anxiety. I am such a huge advocate for mental health and therapy. So finally taking the moment to say, hey, I need help and I have to change some things. So recognize burnout. Next, start to learn self-awareness and self-regulation. Why am I showing up in this way? What is this emotion about? Where is this coming from? And what behavior is following? Lean in empathetically, even to yourself, about that stuff. Lean in with empathy to yourself. And then as you start to recognize those behaviors, bring that into work, bring that into leadership, bring that into the relationships at home, making sure that you are creating safe connections with people in conversations, making sure that you are listening close to what they're trying to say. And finally, setting boundaries in your life, putting limits on things so you can show up as that empathetic leader, so you can show up as that empathetic parent, so you can show up as that empathetic friend that we all need. We need so much more empathy right now. So that's what I have for you. I think we have 10 minutes. I usually leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So Megan, if there's folks still on here and they have a question, I would love to answer it.
And there's quite a few. So if anybody has any questions right now, it'd be a perfect time to put those in the chat and let us know what you're wanting to know from Courtney. And while you're doing that, I am going to launch a really quick poll just to see what everybody thought of today and what other sessions you'd be interested in hearing about on these webinars. So please feel free to take just a minute before you jump off and leave us to fill that out. We love your feedback on how the webinar went for you and how we can improve going forward.
I keep thinking I'm going to stop screen sharing, and I don't know if I did.
You did.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Good.
All right, all. I am seeing no questions coming into the chat, so no problem. We can end just a tick early. If you think of anything you want to ask, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at corporatetraining@kirkwood.edu. We also have a really great opportunity to join us for a free session in person later this week on Thursday. For those who have been a part of The Bridge, it's a series of workshops on leadership and other things that we run into in the workplace. And we have lots of wonderful space open for our Thursday session. This would be a great time to come check it out, see if you like it. And this is on teamwork. So if you need a little help with teamwork in your office, this is a great opportunity. It goes from 9 to noon this Thursday at our Continuing Education Training Center. So if you want to join us for that or you have any questions, I will put my email in the chat here. Please just let me know if you plan to join us. All right. Well, actually, I'm seeing a couple Q&As here now, Courtney.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, someone says they love your glasses, number one.
Yes, Zennies. Zennies.
There you go. And thanks you for the training. And then what if you have employees that require coddling?
Oh boy. So this is going to be in boundaries. Okay, so say we have an employee that is just going through it and is, you know what? I wish you were sitting in front of me so I could ask a clarifying question. Coddling, meaning that they are requiring more of your time that you would like to allow, or coddling like they need constant encouragement, constant feedback. They're insecure and they don't know if they're doing a good job, and because of that, they're just, constantly trying to get from you, I guess, a high five. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think I could better answer that if let me know. Do I have someone that is just like emotionally vomiting all over you, or do I have someone that is just really wants to know they're doing a good job?
Barbara says it's both.
Oh, okay. Woo. Well, first of all, this is a practice in boundaries for you, in setting aside clear expectations with this employee when it comes to your time and what you're willing to talk about. And sometimes these conversations are difficult because you don't want to offend them and you don't want to hurt their feelings, but you do have to respectfully address that you may not be the right person for what they are needing from you. So what I would say is empathetic leadership in this moment looks like, say Megan is coming to me constantly wanting to talk, wanting to chat. And if you've been listening, you probably empathetically understand what she has going on. So that's already going to drop down the guards, hopefully. And you can lean in and say, okay, I know what she has going on. So it gives you a little bit more information about the behavior that is present. Also, I need to be able to say to Megan, I really appreciate that you trust me. I value these conversations. Would it be okay if I give you some feedback? Hopefully this employee is going to say yes, or you could just go ahead and say, I'm going to share with you some things. And here it is. Megan, as your boss, I don't feel equipped for helping you move through some of the things that we have talked about in your personal life or at work. And I think those conversations would be better suited with, and you could say, a mental health professional, a friend, someone that they're close to. And so thank them for telling you about what feels heavy all the time, but also remind them that as their supervisor or their direct report, that you aren't the best person for that. Does that make sense? I mean, these are hard conversations, but you have to reestablish the boundary of what is to be expected out of the relationship. So validate what the person has going on first, then re-outline the expectations of the relationship. The second part I wanted to say was, if it is somebody that needs to know that they are doing a good job, you know what? I have a son like that, and all the time, I mean, this guy all the time, he's like, mom, did you see this? Mom, did you see that? Mom, did I look fast? Mom. And all the time, my husband and I are like, he is so thirsty for affirmation, but it's coming out of insecurity. And so when we have these conversations with him, we directly talk about the insecurity first. And then of course we tell him, yes, you did such a good job. So it's okay to pay the compliment, but you can lean in with curiosity out of it and say, it's really, if it's Megan, you and I talk about this a lot. Is this something that you are insecure about in your day to day? Are you insecure in your work? Because from what I can tell, I'm satisfied with what you're doing. So something like that. Ask the person, what's going on? Are you insecure in this? Because I want to know what's going on, and then reaffirm to them that they're okay. And then if you really want to spend the time with them, you could dig down and say, is that a pattern that you noticed in other relationships, or a pattern that you've had your entire life? So, I mean, I know you don't want to be a therapist, but you could, if you had the time. So I don't know if that helped, but that's how I would handle it. I would validate, I would re-outline the boundaries of the relationship. And then if it's about insecurities and needing to know that they did a good job, I would just point blank ask. I would say, you and I talk about this a lot, or I see a pattern in this. Could you tell me more about it? Yeah.
Thank you. And we have just one more question, and Barbara says, thank you. We have a question that says, How to set boundaries for an employee who texts you frequent life updates that aren't necessary.
Girl, first of all, or boy, I don't know, sir or man. First of all, you gave away your personal phone number. We got to start there. What happened? No. Okay, so now that we've done that, maybe you had to. Maybe you own a business. Maybe that's the only way that they had to get a hold of you. You know what? You readdress exactly what I was saying to Barbara. You just have to readdress the lines of communication. So you say to that person, um, hey, if it would be okay with you, I would like to move this conversation to, I don't know what else that you use for work. I don't know if you have Slack or you have, um, you know, email, or just, hey, when I see you, let's go grab a coffee and you can update me. But it's okay for you to just re-outline what communication is appropriate and what isn't between a boss. The good thing is that this particular employee likes you and trusts you, and they are updating you with life updates because they probably are excited and or worried about something going on and they want to tell someone. So again, we have to have those conversations respectfully and out of love that just say, this is my personal number. I still want to know about your life. Can we move this communication to a more professional setting? That's what I would do. And then if anyone else is on here, don't give out your personal phone number. I mean, not unless you have to. Now, I know some of you are like, I'm the one that owns the business and I have one employee. They have to have my number. I understand that. But if you can avoid it, don't.
Awesome. Well, we have no more questions, but that was excellent. Thank you so much, Courtney. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day and joins us for our May webinar, which we'll be sharing on social media. So keep an eye out for that. And thanks again.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you.